Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Transition Tuesday. My name is Laura Knapp, and I am the Parent Consultant Transition Coordinator from Connecticut Parent Advocacy. I want to remind everybody that this is being recorded, so please keep in mind the things that you are saying, and please keep things confidential. And tonight, presenting with me is Jill Larmett from Disability Resources. She's a Disability Resource Coordinator with Capital Workforce Partners and American Job Centers. So we're happy to bring this presentation to you. It is normally a 2.5 hour presentation, so we are condensing it into an hour and a half time frame. And if everyone can please select a language at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a world icon. And if you can select Spanish or English, we'd appreciate that. And the directions should be up on the screen. And if you want to put your questions in the chat, that would be appreciated. We're going to have questions at the end. So we might get to a few questions during the presentations, but we are holding questions and answers towards the end. So tonight we will go over tips for self-exploration, labor market information, career planning, interview preparation, job retention, and then again, we will be having questions at the end. Okay. So before we begin, Jill, did you want to introduce yourself or say anything about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Laura. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this evening. Good evening, everyone. So as Laura mentioned, I am Jill Larmett, and I'm the Disability Resource Coordinator with Capital Workforce Partners. And we are the North Central Region Connecticut Workforce Development Board. So we help to oversee and run the programs that are happening in the American Job Center system. That's good.
Okay, excellent.
We have a lot to cover.
We do have a lot to cover. So, okay. So for job seekers, you can start yourself by asking these questions. And for parents and professionals, these are the following questions. There's a series of them. You can start asking their job seeker about these questions. So the first step in the process is to have a general understanding of what do you like. Think about what you're interested in. Interests are things that you want to be involved in or learn more about. Understanding what you like and what you dislike can help you discover more about yourself, as well as can help plan for the future. So do you like animals? Do you want to care for them? There's many jobs that involve animals, such as veterinarians. You can work in one of the offices there. You can take care of the animals. There are different volunteering opportunities for rescue centers and whatnot.
And this is a good question to ask for people who say, I want a job, I'll do anything, because I like to tell people anything is not a job. So let's try to find an industry sector that you might be happy in. Okay.
Right. Something that interests you.
Yeah.
Next slide. Okay. So what are your hobbies? The next thing to explore are hobbies. What are the things you like to do? What are the things you enjoy? What brings you enjoyment? What hobbies do you take part in now? Do you enjoy dancing or acting? You know, swimming is a hobby. My hobby is gardening, so that is something that I immensely like doing. I would love to be a florist someday, so who knows, maybe I'll switch careers. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So what are you good at and what are you proud of? Does your family or friends call you to fix their phone, their computer, or help with writing? So keep track of what are you good at, just all these things to think about. You know, maybe you're a good driver, or maybe you're good at communicating. Okay. And it's good to keep track and be aware of what time of day are you most productive, or do you have energy? Do you have more energy in the morning? For instance, some people may take medications that make them groggy in the morning, or take allergy pills like I do, and I'm a little bit groggy in the morning. And also, what do you use yourself in? I mentioned gardening. I lose all sorts of track of time when I'm gardening, so it's good to know what things that will keep you not necessarily distracted, but will keep your focus on one thing. Okay. And what values guide you. Values are views and ideas you believe are important and choose to live by in your day-to-day life. Personal values often determine and influence what actions we take on various issues and topics. However, we'll get more into that when we're talking about career planning. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So the environment is really very important to think about. It's good to know what you like and what you do not like. If the job seeker does not enjoy the cold or the outdoors, a landscaping job or working in a meat department may not be a good fit. You know, if they like to work alone, then perhaps a job that uses a team effort is best. And going back to when the job seeker is more productive, is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? So what are the best hours that you can work? And it's really great to ask, how do your friends and family see you, and ask for that honest feedback. What do they say about you? How do they see you? This could give the job seeker information not expected, such as things that they're good at.
It's also helpful information for resume, soft skills, and for the interview.
Absolutely. Next slide. So what are the best things they can say? What do they say about the job seeker? These things said could be good qualities for employment, and write them down because they translate into skills. A good listener and helper means that it could mean that they work well in a team environment. They're a team player. You know, is that person always on time? Are they a good cook? These are the great questions to ask and to keep track of. Definitely write down a journal. Yep.
If I can just interject, these are things that, you know, if you're a teacher on this call, a parent, a case manager, these are things that you can help, especially young job seekers starting out. You know, I just want to make a point that you're always on time for our appointments, and I appreciate that. And employers are going to love you for that. Do you know that you always come into my office with a smile? Employers are going to love that. Nobody wants to work with a crank pot, so thank you for bringing that smile to me. Things like that we can just reinforce and kind of help build their confidence and self-esteem. And again, it's going to be helpful when they get to the interview. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no, please do. Okay, next slide. So on the flip side to that, what are the worst things that they can say about you? We want to know what we need to work on, and ask them to give positive, that definite feedback, hold nothing back. I know when I've asked folks, they're usually afraid to say something, but these are the things we want to know and we need to work on. So, and going back to what we think we are good at may not translate. So it's good advice, and it's good feedback to know that I thought I was always on time. What do you mean I'm late? And that gives us information. So we know what to work on now and build those skills, as working on it now is better than finding out when you're in the interview or you have the job and you're late and you're wondering why you're getting written out. And now I will turn this over to Jill.
Yeah, so we want to take a look at the labor market. It doesn't have to be that intense, guys, but especially if higher ed is being considered, we don't want to put somebody into $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of college debt to go into a job that's not in demand. Maybe like a big one is like marine biology. Well, there's not that many jobs at Mystic. So are you willing to go out west? You want to move. So if you're planning on staying in Connecticut, close to your friends and family, it's important to take a look at the labor market, information. What jobs are hot, jobs are not, what jobs are coming, what jobs are going. You can go on ONET or the Connecticut Department of Labor. The websites are down on the bottom here just to check it out. But, again, I just worry about somebody making a huge investment with something that has a 2% job growth. So right now in Connecticut, our top industry sectors are manufacturing, healthcare, information technology, the trades, and logistics, and like CDL drive. Those are the biggest in-demand industries right now. Next slide, please. Is this me?
Yep, that's you. That's okay.
So now we figured out who we are. Okay, so now let's start figuring out the career planning, how we're going to get there. Okay, it's kind of like, who am I? Where am I going? How am I going to get there? And how am I going to stay there? Is kind of like the process of this presentation. Okay, so again, finding out our likes and our dislikes and what we need to work on. We kind of want to think about too. A lot of people say, what's your dream job? And that's okay. It's perfectly fine to say, what's your dream job? Sometimes it's not realistic. Everybody wants to be Michael Jordan, a basketball player, or they want to be a rapper. It could be realistic. And we'd have to kind of figure out the steps to get there, right? Oftentimes, Laura mentioned environment. And a lot of times, you know, somebody wants to be Michael Jordan, a professional basketball player, but can we get them into a basketball arena? You know, can they be a coach, even a physical therapist for athletes? Can they be a towel boy? Can they be a camera operator? Can they work in food service so they can see the games for free? Like, is there a way that we can get them into the environment that they like? But I also like to ask, what problems do you want to solve? Because if somebody really has no idea what direction they want to go, you know, is there something that irks you? You know, like there's not enough services or there's not enough accessible parking spots. Is there something like really irks you? Then, you know, maybe it could be like an advocacy job. Advocacy can, you know, be a career. So sometimes that's a good question to ask as well. You know, and then what do I need to learn to be able to do that? And that ONET online from the last slide, that's a great resource. On the top right corner, they have a occupation quick search bar. And so say somebody wants to be, you know, I want to be a receptionist. You put in receptionist and it gives you the tools, the technology, the knowledge, the skills, the education. It gives you everything you need to know about the job. And it's a really, really good tool for career exploration. It even gives you links to jobs. It even gives you links to training opportunities for that. So what do I need to do to make that happen? For folks who are still in school, is there any kind of classes? Are there any electives that can assist you? Is that a possibility to kind of figure out if you like it or not? And again, do you have the resources to figure that out? Whether it be through a teacher, a case manager, you know, CPAC, the American Job Center, you know, do you know where to go to figure things out?
Right. And if I can just interject really quickly, for, you know, for many youth and with disabilities, that individualized education program, the IEP, is really the roadmap to their future and their jobs. So that career planning is really important to implement that in the IEP, talk to them. For job seekers, career planning really sets a realistic step-by-step plan. And with the IEP, you can put that those goals and objectives into the IEP.
So if you see here, we have a reoccurring theme of environment. You know, if your job seekers are using an agency, whether it be the American Job Center, DDS, or BRS, you know, in all fairness, and I don't mean to sound mean, but we need our numbers. So a lot of times we're quick to place people because there's a job opening, we have a lead. They came to us with anything's a job. Okay, not asking these questions. Sometimes we don't have the time to really delve into, especially speaking for the American Job Center, we don't really have the time to do that career exploration, that discovery period. So it's really important to know yourself, what environment you want to work in. Like if you're somebody who's anxious, like, why did we put you in Walmart in customer service to listen to people complain all day? Like, that's just not real smart. Okay, not just temperature wise, right? So we want to look at that. We want to look at if you need a smaller mom and pop versus a big box or corporate type entity. So we just added this in a third time because that self-advocacy piece, you know, putting your foot down, no, this is not going to work for me, is going to be very important. Okay. A lot of the folks that, you know, when I go into the schools and do this presentation, you know, they all want to make $30 an hour right away. They want to start at the top. And They don't understand about getting your foot in the door and working your way up the ladder. They don't get it. And I understand we live in an instant gratification society these days, you know. But having that conversation, how bad do you want this job? Because you might have to start out, like I can give my son as an example. Right now, he's a custodian in the school system, but ultimately he wants to work his way into park and rec. Okay, so he's willing to do the cleaning in the meantime so he can get into the department that he ultimately wants for his future. So are you willing to do that and work your way up? And then part of that discovery too, you know, what's working for you? You know, I'm really good at fixing things. I'm really good at driving. I'm good at handing in my homework assignments on time. You know, this is working for me. And then what do I need to fix? I don't hand my assignments in on time. I don't arrive on time. Making that list, because these are all things that are going to impact your job retention. Okay. Do you want to add anything, Laura? Okay, next slide, please. Sometimes I like to start out with, like, what do you want? Especially when it comes to wanting to start at the top. You know, what do you want? Do you want to buy a car? Do you want to buy the new Jordans? Do you want to travel? Do you want to rent your own apartment? What are you looking at 5-10 years from now? What are you for your future? So let's figure this out. Okay, so if you want an apartment and a car and you're going to be paying all the bills, you're going to need to make X amount of money a month. So that means you're going to have to earn $30 an hour to be able to have all these things that you want. So let's figure this out. What jobs are going to pay 30 bucks an hour? What do you need to do to get there? Okay. So sometimes that incentivizes you know, people to do the work. Okay, I will go take this certification class. I will go do this, you know, because they could keep their eye on the prize. They're not just working to work, right? They're working because it's going to get them to Paris. It's going to get them the Jordans. So sometimes this is helpful conversation.
Yeah. And what do they need? What salary do they need to have the good life that they want?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Which we all deserve, right? Everybody deserves to live their best life. So next slide. So another thing we want to do is we want to identify our skills. A lot of people don't really understand that there's different types of skills. So we have our hard skills, and these are things that we're going to need for the job. Oftentimes, we're going to need them for our resume, and we're going to need them for our interview. So hard skills can be measured. I can type 50 words a minute. You know, I'm a very good writer. I'm very good at math. So if you can take any kind, there's all sorts of free, you know, assessments online that you can take to be able to get these numbers. Employers like numbers. You know, they're going to love it if you say you type 60 words a minute, you know, or that you're good at math. And we're going to talk a little bit later. You can't just tell me you're good at it. You're going to have to show me. And we're going to talk about that when we get to the interview part of this presentation this evening. But starting to identify those hard skills. And I just want to say one thing. Interestingly enough, hard skills can be taught. So it's a big part of the job description, right? But if you all take 5 minutes to look at 3 job ads tomorrow, you know, you're going to see that there might be 2, maybe 3 hard skills, but the rest are going to be soft skills. So that leads me to the next slide, please. So the soft skills, right? These can be worked on, but not necessarily taught when we're going into the workforce, right? So these are our personality traits. A little bit, you know, more important to be able to show me these. Don't tell me you're a problem solver. Don't tell me you have a positive, you know, outlook. Don't tell me that you have attention to detail. We want to work on our stories. I need you to show me through past experiences. And it doesn't have to be a work experience. It can be a family experience, a school experience, a volunteer experience. But I need you to be able to show me. And we have some examples a little bit later in this presentation. But start writing the list of soft skills down.
Right. And really quickly, parents can really teach those soft skills, and reiterate them at home. You know, they can set expectations. They can ask their youth that you need to dress a certain way for dinner, help them plan the meals. They can do lots of various different things and talk to them about perspective taking. So those soft skills can really be developed. And I can tell you from my own experience when doing interviewing, there's a candidate that had really wonderful soft skills that seemed like a great match, but they weren't necessarily, they had some training in special education, but not necessarily the same amount as another candidate. But we went with the candidate that has the soft skills that was a better fit versus, you know, those hard teachable skills, because they were willing to learn, and we can send them to different professional development and develop those skills.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of times with the soft skills too, and you know, it's proven when people choose to diversify their workforces that those soft skills change not only the dynamic of the workforce, but it changes the work values of their coworkers. It seems that because they're so willing to work and they want to work and they're able to work and they're focused on work, their attendance is good. There's just so many positive factors that the other people say, well, you know, if Johnny can do this, I better be able to step this up, you know. I just did an interview with NBC News with a former customer of mine who's deaf, who was hired by Enterprise. And October was Disability Employment Awareness Month, so we did a little presentation, you know, for NBC News, and the employer's like, wow, this taught me like communication, the importance of communication, but also that texting can be professional. And it made me not only look at, you know, working with Matt because he's deaf, but looking at my other, how do I communicate? Because everybody communicates differently. You know, some are auditory, some are visual. You know, some might speak another language. English might be a second language. So communication skills across the board were enhanced because they hired Matt. So, you know, interesting. All right, moving on. I'm sorry I babbled, and I'm supposed to be keeping you from babbling, Laura. But the other thing is our transferable skills, and this comes from experience. You know, classes that we took in school, past jobs, hobbies, sports, you know, extracurricular activities. These are all, you know, transferable that oftentimes can be brought into a job. Okay. Next slide, please.
I think that's me.
Yep.
So how can job seekers build work experiences that can be listed on a resume without actually having a paid job? One strategy is volunteering. Volunteering is a great way to show employers that you can and want to work even though you're not getting paid. It builds networks, which leads to job opportunities, and volunteering is a point that should be highlighted in the interview process. It's really important to note that volunteering is not acceptable long-term substitute for paid employment, and volunteering could be used as a way to funnel people into unpaid work. So you need those self-advocacy skills to say, no, I'm not going to continue to volunteer, you know. And we have seen that. And as an employer, and you have free people without having to pay them free labor, you're all about it, right? So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And you should also try several different experiences. They allow job seekers to explore many different types of jobs, making it easier to begin focusing on a specific career path they may want to follow. And also keep in mind that this is something that a parent, a sibling, a professional, a teacher could do alongside with the job seeker, making it easier to provide any coaching or supports. There's many numerous ways to volunteer, and also a network. So a network doesn't have to mean this formal group to utilize for specific purposes. It's anybody you know, including family members, professionals, acquaintances, informal places such as fraternal organizations or places of worship, the grocery store, the gas station. These are all folks in your network. So you want to make sure you're building your network, keeping track of your network, because connections mean linkages to job opportunities. It's not people. It's not the one ads that hire. It's those connections, those people. And for families who have a youth who are still in high school or they're in a transition program, there can be apprehension as whether or not this job is safe, it's a good fit. You know, as a mother, I get nervous, for sure. If my child who has a disability, okay, they're going to be on their own. Is it safe? So it's a great place to use your networks to set up that job site, to make that referral, so it's in a safe environment. So, and those networks that you have, it's, you know, can lead into paid employment, volunteering opportunities, and all sorts of things.
And it's good on the college application if people are pursuing higher ed.
Yes, for sure.
Next slide.
Yes.
All right, so this really doesn't need anything. It says it all. The truth of the matter is, if you're just sitting on Indeed all day, or CT Hires or Monster, whatever you're on all day, it's not the most productive way to do a job search. Literally 80%, 70% at least. The jobs are in the hidden job market. That means the employers are not posting the jobs. They're hiring within, they're promoting within, first of all, or they're asking, you know, their staff, you know, hey, do you have anyone for this job? You know, after they've gone through the staff for a week or two, then they'll put it out to the public. So this is kind of interesting. And like Laura just said, that networking, you know, people not want ads are going to get you a job faster. Okay.
Yep.
People not
Absolutely.
want ads are going to get you a job faster. And, you know, I wish that we were together in person, because I wish we had time for like a round robin to say, how'd you get your first job? Because I can tell you, my friend Sharon A got me my job at Dairy Queen. So like most of us got a job because we knew somebody, you know, when we first started out. So,
Absolutely.
so very important.
So actually, that's how I got my job at CPAC. It was through networking. I had volunteered at CPAC, and I took their next steps and did some volunteer work. And, you know, a couple years ago, they said, hey, do you want a job? Actually, it was my first job. I got the same way.
Yeah. You're in the door. So I just wanted to put it out there, and I wish we had more time, because, you know, like I would tell people, you know, research 5 companies that you want to work for and send them a letter with your resume. I want to work for you. And you never know if they have an opening or if one's going to open up, you know, down the road. Another thing that you can start doing now, if you're not, maybe you're waiting for summertime to job search for, you know, summer youth employment or whatever, but things that you can start doing now, clean up the social media.
Yes.
Employers are going to Google you, Google yourself, see what comes up. They're going to go looking on the Facebooks and all that. So, you know, make sure the Facebook setting is on friends and not on public. Have a professional email. It's okay to have your fluffy kitten, hot rod mama. It's okay to have all those emails, but have a professional one for the job search. Okay, keep that separate. Check your phone. If your outgoing message says, please listen to the music while we wait, I'm going to hang up on you. People are not going to listen to music for an hour. So, you know, be mindful of your outgoing message, that it's professional. Don't do the hello, ha, gotcha. You know, when you're job searching, you know, change your voicemail, your outgoing, you know, message to be professional. You know, once you have resumes out there, you know, be mindful when you answer the phone, you know, good evening, this is Jill. Even if you think it's your friend calling, but if you have an unknown number calling you, you know, be mindful how you answer your phone. If you're in the middle of the mall or something, you know, try to go to a quiet place. Oh, thank you so much for calling me. Give me 1 second, just so I can get into a quiet place. All right, to have that conversation. But Googling yourself is really, really important, and checking all your settings and all that, because employers will look at it. Okay.
Yep. And I actually do know some folks who were fired because of what they were posting on their social media, especially keep in mind, they're going to look, and if you're posting things that should be kept confidential, they're going to be aware of that, and they won't hire you, or you might get fired.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay. I'll start this, Laura, I think, because I have both of us listed on this one, but this is a session in itself. We can't possibly even get to resume tonight. Just a couple of tips on the resume. There should be a basic resume. but every time the job seeker is applying for a job, you need to change that resume to match the job. And the reason for this is that employers are using applicant tracking systems. So they're looking for that must have a driver's license, must lift 50 pounds, must know how to type. They're looking for those buzzwords. So it's very important that you add those buzzwords from the job ad into your qualifications, on the resume, so that you can even get through the applicant tracking systems. And a big mistake that people make is they make the resume about the past, but the resume is really about the future. The employer wants to know, why should I hire you? Okay, what are you going to bring to the workforce? So it's really a mindset shift. Resume should be about the future. Sure, you're going to have your past experience, but that top third of the resume is the most important. This is going to make or break you, whether they want to read further. Okay, this is a real resume. This is the top portion of a resume from a young lady who was incarcerated. And she got out, she went to the American Job Center, she took her phlebotomy certification training, and this was her resume. She got called immediately from sending her resume out and was hired on the spot. So resume is about the future. I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, I think just the key takeaway is really it should be tailored to what that job posting is. What are your skills that match that job posting?
So now we're moving on to, so now we figured out who we are. We figured out, how the career exploration piece. So now we got to get the job. Okay. So that will lead us to the interview. So, the old joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Well, that's the same thing as interviewing. Okay. It's really important to do your homework, research the company, true story. And I didn't do my homework, Laura. Bob and John interviewed for JCPenney Warehouse. Bob was more qualified than John, and the employer said, so what does JCP stand for? And first guy didn't know. The underqualified person said John Cashpenny. Could be James Cashpenny, but regardless, he knew the guy's name. He researched the company and they hired him. So it can make or break you. Researching the company helps you look at the environment. Are there a lot of employees, right? I don't want to work in such a big place like that. It helps you to understand if they have a mission. Do you see pictures on their website? Like, did they do they do company outings? Maybe they all do fundraisers together, like the Coleman walks or something like that. Is it a good company with good values? It really helps to research the company. Okay. And it helps you to have questions for them, which we'll get to in a little bit. And you just want to practice with friends, and hopefully you've done all that homework. So in that self-discovery piece, have a list of your accomplishments. And it's okay. You can bring a notebook with you and have your list of accomplishments, because you might need to refer to it if you're afraid that you're going to leave something out. It's okay to bring a notebook with you. The day of the interview, the interview starts from when you wake up in the morning. Did you get up early enough? Are you going to be rushed and disheveled when you get there? Or did you give yourself enough time to, shower, shave, shine, to have a good breakfast? Did you dress appropriately for the interview? Did you do a practice run the day before or the week before? Do you know where you're going? How many buses is it going to take you? Do you have a ride? Like, all these logistics are very, very important. So the interview starts when you wake up in the morning. Okay. Next slide, please.
What I wanted to just quickly mention about the interview is that the families can really help their young job seekers with this, and really help them practice and develop questions and even answer questions. Or if your family member might know someone in the industry, and you can do a mock interview with them, and they can give you some great feedback on, what to say at the interview, how to conduct yourself. So practicing makes perfect.
Yeah. And we have a couple of resource pages at the end of this presentation, which you will all be receiving. And on the Department of Labor Youth site, there's actually a sample application, and I strongly recommend that everybody fills that out. It kind of helps you when you're doing online applications, especially if you're being timed. You'll have all the information when you're, working. Say you decide to go to an agency for services, you're going to have all that information. You're not going to have to keep, who was that employer? What was that name? What was their phone number? What was their address? You have that hard copy application, that you can bring with you. There's also like a 2-page list of questions that you might be asked. But any question that you're going to be asked in an interview, the employer's thinking, why should I hire you? So your answers need to answer that question. This is why you should hire me. Okay. So we want to kind of think like the employer. Who would you hire? And again, if we were in person, we'd be playing a game. We would be playing employers and looking at resumes and see who we would bring in and who we wouldn't. So we kind of have an understanding of what they're looking at. But having those stories, remember I said earlier with the soft skills and skills in general, you can't just tell me you have these skills, you have to show me. So usually the first question is going to be, tell me about yourself, or do you have experience with this? Or you can say, this is just a sample, make it your own, obviously. Hey, I always like to figure things out. I was the kind of person who took everything apart and put them together, and I could fix just about anything. I guess you could say I have a knack to figure out what's wrong with things and making it better. And I like using my hands and building things. I have a model car collection, and I'm just really handy with tools, and something like that. Not tell me about yourself. I was born in 1963 and I went to Martin School and da 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 da. Right. So that tell me about yourself is what are you going to bring to the table? Why should I hire you? Next slide, please. There we go. And here's another example. You'll get this. I don't need to read it. We can go to the next slide. So again, I told you it's okay to bring a notebook. You can bring a folder with the points, with your questions. You want to bring a few copies of resumes. Sometimes they surprise you, have a couple other people in the interview with you. So, bring extra copies. References go on a separate page. They do not go on the resume anymore. So having references, sometimes they won't ask you for references, but when you're thanking them, thank you. I really appreciate your time today. And I know we have a thank you slide. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I really appreciate your time today. And I really think I'm a good fit for this position. And I would like to be considered for this job. And I'm just going to leave you with my references and leave those references right on the table. Ask for business cards before you leave if you don't already have their information, so that you can send thank you notes. Make sure your phone's turned off, or don't even bring it in with you. If in a God forbid situation it goes off by accident, just say I'm so sorry, apologize and turn it off. And then I say the first 10 seconds count, but I'm going to reiterate, the interview starts when you wake up in the morning. And you don't know who's looking out the window watching people come in, like who's coming to interview today. So even walking up into the door from the parking lot, receptionists rule the world. I'm telling you right now, they rule the world, because don't think the employer is not going to go out to that receptionist and say, hey, how was Jane? What was she like? Well, she was on her phone all the time while she was in the lobby, and she didn't say hello. She was rude. Or, how was Laura? Oh, she was so friendly. She asked me how long I've been working here. What's my favorite part around her? She's so friendly. She would be a great addition. Their opinion matters. So be nice to everyone you meet.
Yeah, and they will tell the truth.
Yeah, when you're walking through the door. Okay. Was there one more point on there? Can you go? Yeah, just the shaking of the hand. I know that's difficult for some people. I know it's a COVID world. Some people are doing the fist bump. So that's not always as important nowadays with COVID. But if you're able, a good strong handshake is good. Eye contact and smile. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for having me today. Wait to sit down. Sometimes it's a trick. They want to know, if you're going to try to sit in their chair, and they want to know that that they're the boss type thing. So, wait and be asked to take your seat. True story. This guy that runs a warehouse, when he interviews people, he goes out to the lobby and he says, Jill, and then, right here, hi, nice to meet you. And he walks really, really fast. And and he turns around, and if you can't keep up with him, you don't even get the interview. I mean, that's just silly. That's a rare occasion. But I'm just saying, that people have different styles. So that first 10 seconds, it makes a big difference. Okay, next slide. The virtual tips, is this you or is this me?
That's you.
Yeah, just, check your Wi-Fi. And if you have sporadic Wi-Fi that goes in and out, can you go to a friend or family members? Pay attention to your background. Is it a professional background? Like, you don't really want a big unmade bed in the background. Okay. Even turning the computer so you have a blank wall behind you, so you have professional, or do what I just did and blur out my screen because I'm working from home right now, right? So just checking your background, but the Wi-Fi is really big. And then, quiet, let your people know, like I just let my family household know, hey, I'm doing a presentation tonight, so I don't have the electric guitar going next door. Not that you wouldn't have loved the entertainment, just saying. Attire matters. Even if it is a Zoom interview, you still want to dress appropriately, how you would dress if you were going. Your bottoms you might have on, like I have jeans and sneakers on my bottom, but your top should matter. Appropriate for the interview. I always want to dress for success, right? We want to be on time. It's better that we're in the waiting room for them to let us in. So log on a few minutes early. If you're able, you want to make eye contact, looking into the camera. Try to stay focused and engaged, obviously, and try to pretend like you're there. I know it's hard. It's so impersonal, but hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Don't be on your phone. That's actually happens in interviews. It would be like, they're looking at their phone.
Right.
And I think I heard a story where someone actually took the interview in Starbucks, and it was very, very noisy.
Yeah.
And needless to say, that person was not hired.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is.
And then thank you note always, whether it's in person or virtual. Okay, next slide, please. And be confident. Here I give you all these rules. Okay, now take a deep breath and be confident, because they are interested in you. They've called you, so they're already interested in you. They could be just as nervous about interviewing as you are about being interviewed. So you kind of want to have you're on that equal ground. Okay. But remembering that there's money at stake, right? This is a business meeting. Why should I hire you? I'm going to be paying you. So as professional as we can be, and as honest as we can be, that would be helpful. Okay. And again, so much of it, the hard skills, I can teach you how to run my machine. I could teach you how to, tag my clothes. I could teach you how to do my software. These are all teachable things, how to run my cash register. But I want to know that you're going to get along with others. Okay. And basically it's rude, but do I want to work with you? That's the bottom line. Do I want to work with you? You seem like you're willing to work and you're willing to learn. Do you seem like you're going to be fun? So that's a big part of the interview. It's a little bit easier when you're in person to make a connection. Like, I always get excited when I see Yankees things on the walls. I know I'm getting a bunch of boos. All the Red Sox fans out there getting a bunch of boos right now. But if I see Yankees, that's an instant connection. Like, how about those Yankees? Thank God Judge signed a contract. But can you believe that salary? You can make conversation, right? Or like, oh, what a beautiful family you have, or oh, I like your tie, good taste in ties. Just something that can make a connection. Trust me, that just kind of sets a tone and it puts you at ease going into the interview. Okay. And And take your time, think about the question. And it's okay if sometimes you're not really sure what they're asking you, and it's okay to say, could you repeat the question? And that gives you a little bit of time to think why they're repeating it, or I'm not sure what you mean by that question. May you please rephrase it? That's okay. It's perfectly fine. Next slide, please. We want to be honest, but we don't want to lie. We don't want to say we have experience that we didn't have. Okay. We don't want to say we can type 60 words a minute when we can type 30. Like we want to be as honest as possible, but we don't want to be too honest. We don't want to be so honest that we're giving too much information, especially, as it relates to a disability. This could be another training in itself, talking about disclosure. Yes. That we just don't have time, sadly, to go into that, this evening. But here's a couple, resources for you to check it out. And also, with that whole self-advocacy piece too, understanding, the Americans with Disabilities Act and the rights in the workplace, and understanding whether questions are legal or illegal, or inappropriate or illegal. Okay, is important to know.
And that's a great place where the family can come in, because they can coach their young job seekers to answer those questions, saying, I don't think it's appropriate to ask that, or I'd rather focus on why I'd be a good employee for you. So it's a really great place for families and school districts to kind of scaffold those skills. And also, speaking of families, I know as a parent, sometimes we want to go on the interview with especially the first interview, but there is no legal right for the family to participate in the interview. And it really should be a spot for that, to develop those skills, that autonomy. So it's very rare that an employer would let a parent come into an interview. Okay.
You want to take this one, Laura?
That's me. Okay.
Yep.
So it's really good to ask employers questions. So you want to pick 2 or 3, and here's several questions. The next few slides have several questions, but keep it related to why they should hire you, because the employer is thinking, why should I hire you? Tell me about yourself. You might want to ask something when you've done the research for that company. For example, if I was interviewing for CPAC and I researched their company and I found out that it is the Parent in Training and Information Center funded through the Department of Education, I might ask them, how long has CPAC been the Parent in Training Information Center? So I might ask them some sort of questions, and that lets the interviewer know that you did your research, you're invested, and you want to work with them. So you can ask things like, what are the responsibilities of the job? That should be posted, but when they're send out the job posting, but you might want to ask them more detailed questions about it. You might want to know, how do I get professional development? What's the next process? Next slide.
And what you don't want to ask is, how much does it pay? You don't want to ask, how much is your vacation? How many vacation days do you get? Those are conversations that happen after the offer. Okay.
Right.
You want to avoid those questions at all costs.
Yep. So a great question is, can you tell me a little bit more about the typical day, or tell me about the work environment? Because you have non-negotiables. We talked about not wanting to be in a cold environment. If during the interview it is disclosed that there's a possibility you're going to move to Alaska, you don't like cold environments, you're going to know right then and there, not the job for me.
And this will help us determine accommodations should they be needed as well.
Absolutely.
So that is a good question.
Yeah. Next slide. So closing the interview, remember, a good interview is like a conversation. Thank them, tell them that you're interested. This sounds like an amazing place to work. I can't wait I really want to work here. I can't wait. Wish them luck with the interview process. You can hand them a handwritten note, but importantly, as you're leaving, get their business card. If you forget to ask them directly because you're too nervous, ask the secretary, ask that front office staff, but follow it up with an email. Thank you so much for interviewing me. I'm looking forward to the next step in the process.
A thank you note is also a good opportunity if you forgot to say something. I get into my car every time I interview and say, oh, darn it, I forgot to say that. Oh, darn it, I forgot to say that, because you're just so in the moment. And so it's a good opportunity to squeeze something in that, if it's relevant, that, might have been important.
Right.
Just saying. And so now we figured out who I am, we've figured out where I'm going, we figured out how to get there. Now we have to figure out how to stay there. Because when and if you're working with an agency, we're not going to keep your cases open that long. Like if you're working through the voc rehab system, they'll close the case after 90 days of successful employment. The American Job Center, our retention is kind of more like, are you getting paid? Send me your pay stubs. And just to be frank, okay. So we're not real good at working on keeping the job. None of our agencies are. And it's a missed opportunity, because we really want to help people, go to be, have a lifetime of competitive employment and to build that great life that we all deserve. So attendance is really important. Again, if I need to work on my lateness and my attendance, I need to work on that. Start practicing now, and not to call out for 90 days, even if you're green in the face, sick, unless you have COVID, go to work, let them send you home. So you're showing that you're doing everything possible, to keep this job. Being on time, punctuality is, if your job starts at 9, you're not walking in the door at 9. You're at your desk at 9 or at your station at 9. So if you want to go in, and if you have a locker or whatever, you want to hang up your coat, you want to talk about last night's episode of The Voice or America Got Talent, you want to talk with your coworkers, have coffee, whatever, get there early, because you're at your station at 9 o'clock, at the start time, not walking in the door. Okay. Obviously your appearance matters. You want to look the part, you want to dress appropriately. If you have anything that requires a, uniform or steel toe boots, you want to have your appropriate attire with you on you. Attitude, you want to come in with a smile every day, and you need to leave your problems at the door. You can't bring your fight with your boyfriend or girlfriend into the office with you. You have to deal with that on your break, or deal with it when you get home. And it's not easy. This is not easy at all. I got you, elbow. It's not easy to leave our problems at home, but very important that we work on this. And if we notice this, especially like in the classroom, or if somebody's doing any like paid work experiences now, can we catch people on that and say, hey, we need to work on this. Okay. Got to leave problems at the door. Nobody wants to work with a Debbie Downer. Productivity, do your job. Watch the blabbing. I'm notorious for blabbing. I found that I'm so much more productive with this hybrid model of working home 3 days a week. My 2 days in, I am doing a lot of talking. I am not as productive. So do your job, bottom line. And then, how do I keep my job? These things are all important, but professional development, we've been through some different times. We've been through a pandemic. We're still in a pandemic somewhat. We've been through a recession. Companies had to downsize. Companies had to close. So if a company is downsizing, why should I keep you? I'm going to keep you because you've done professional development. You've learned, I'll use retail as an example. You've not only learned the cash register, you've learned customer service. You've learned the changing room. You've learned tagging clothes. You've learned recovery. You are a great folder. So you're more versatile. And you have the good attitude. So now is an opportunity for me to clean house from the Debbie Downers.
Great.
So keep learning. And you can ask the employer, do you have professional development? If not, where can you find it? I'm on Google so much, I renamed it Googil. There's so many free classes.
I like that.
There's so many free classes on there that you could take. The libraries, check out your libraries, you know, they have classes. LinkedIn has trainings. There's just so many opportunities out there for you to be able to keep learning. And that is a key element that is often not discussed or overlooked. I hope I slowed down enough for you, my friend. So take it away there. Close us out, friend.
Going back to self-exploration, think about your values, what you're good at, what your interests are, your hobbies, and how can all of that become a job? And how does that fit into your dream of a good life? Think about what motivated you, have an idea of what salary that you need to have a good life, and remember to keep a journal. It can help you discover your interests, what you're good at, and what you need to work on. So when exploring careers, some things to consider in a job are work schedule, what time you go in, when you leave, how far is it, what type of transportation, and your non-negotiables. For instance, if you do not like the cold, as you can tell, I do not like the cold. That's why I keep bringing it up. You're not going to relocate to Alaska. You're not going to work in the meat department. So know your non-negotiables. In the interview, research the company, be prepared to write down questions and know what your skills are for that job. So you can explain them, you can reiterate them during the interview and know the requirements of that job. You got to sell it and practice it. So keeping a job, just to recap, be on time, wear appropriate clothes, smile, be positive, and use professional development. Do we have any questions? I don't see any questions in the chat.
And the PowerPoint was uploaded in the chat.
It was uploaded in the chat. I can do it again.
If anyone, I think it's there twice. If anyone is
yes,
looking for it.
Yep. And I'm actually going to launch a poll just really quickly. If you can answer that, that would be appreciated. And I know we touched on a lot of topics that, like you said, normally this is a longer one. Like I know resume is its own workshop, and also disclosure is its own workshop. So if that's something you're interested in, certainly let us know.
I have a question.
Sure.
Maybe I missed it, but do you have any recommendations for places to sort of practice interview skills, or are there any I don't know, places to do that type of thing?
But one of the first things that comes to my mind is, well, it depends on how old the person is. If they're still in high school or transition program, that's something that they can do in high school with their transition coordinator, the school staff, and also within the transition program. American Job Centers, they have workshops, correct, Jill?
Yes, there are workshops. If you're working with either agency, whether it's BRS or DDS or the American Job Center, if they're working in the employment services, they will receive interview practice, whether it's through like a community rehab provider. At the American Job Center, we do it through our business service team. We're not doing live. The Department of Labor used to do live mock interview sessions, which were fantastic because they role played. At first, you played the employer asking the questions, and then you swapped being the job seeker, and they put you on video, and you were able to look back and watch yourself and realize, oh, I played with my hair. Oh, I shook my leg. I said 500 times. You're able to kind of look at yourself and do your own critique on what you need to work on. But sadly, all the workshops are being done virtually right now.
Actually, there is, at the end of the PowerPoint, there was a list of different resources, Jen. I don't know if it's after the thank you, if you can quickly pop that back up. So I know we have a question in the chat. Okay, I will read the chat question. Can you recommend any sources we can tap into to find, hire a job coach, support our daughter at her job site? Are they working? Is your daughter working with your rehab services at this point in time? Okay, not now. That would be one resource.
Yeah, job coaching gets tricky. That's kind of a long conversation. Because BRS would only have job coaches for onboarding supports. They're not going to have
Right.
ongoing job coaching. It could possibly, depending on the funding in the individual's plan, if they're working with the Department of Developmental Services, they may have, funding for job coaching. Sometimes people become their own employers,
Mhm.
and they pay for their own job coaching. So the answer to that could be tricky. It depends. It's a sidebar conversation.
Yes. And we do have a comment in the chat. Danielle asked, can my teacher help me do this? And the teacher did say yes. And that would be, I'm assuming that you're in a transition program or you're a senior in high school. And that is a place where the school district will assist those folks who are 18 to up to age 22 in that transition program. They would go out into the community. They would look at different job sites and in what skills they need developing and self-advocacy skills that are needed and help develop that. And thank you, Jen, just put up some of the online resources. Do you recommend disclosing a disability, and if so, when?
Disclosure is personal choice. Okay. If you choose to disclose or not to disclose, there's no right or wrong answer on that. In most cases, you don't need to disclose unless you need a reasonable accommodation. And again, this could be another training because, as your students, young job seekers are, aging out of school, now they're going into the new world of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires people to disclose a disability to be able to get accommodations. Okay, so it's a different world. I highly recommend Jan, the Job Accommodation Network. If this is new, if you're a parent and your children are transitioning into adulthood, I highly recommend that you check out the Job Accommodation Network and just understand the Americans with Disabilities Act. But to answer your disclosure question, you really only need to disclose if you need a reasonable accommodation. Timing, really, it depends. If you need an accommodation for the interview, such as an American Sign Language interpreter, or you need help with the application process, then you will be disclosing before the interview. I might suggest if a person's blind, I might suggest they disclose in the middle of the interview so that they could be considered for the job. They could say, hey, bet you wondering how I'm going to check my email. Well, I have JAWS. It's a text to speech software. And I will be able to communicate no problem with you. Just so you can be in contention for the job. Maybe I know a friend of mine actually uses a wheelchair. And when he interviewed, he disclosed, I bet you're wondering how I'm going to get to work every day. Just want you to know that I have an accessible van and I drive, and I'm notorious for being places on time. So getting here is a non-issue. So that might be an exception to disclose during the interview. Otherwise, experts will say, personal choice again on the timing, but you really don't need to disclose until after you've been offered the job. And if you disclose after you've been offered the job, and God forbid, the employer reneges, now you have the Americans with Disabilities Act to protect you because that was discrimination. So again, the Job Accommodation Network or the 411, youth site on disclosure, really good websites to start kind of researching that. Did that answer your question?
Okay. In the chat, Lori Theriault posted, I'm a career coach for students, including students with special needs, workatcareers.com. I can assist you. Sorry. In any way, please reach out. Does anybody have any other questions? You can unmute or put it in the chat. I think we're all set with PowerPoint, Jen. So, oh, thank you. I was just gonna thank you, Jen. So that is our contact information. You can probably emailing me is the best way. I'm putting my cursor over my email, like you can see my cursor. Sorry. My email is lnapp@cpacinc.org. So feel free to email me. This is probably the best way to contact me because I am still working remotely. So be happy to answer any questions, find resources for you, work with you, your young adult, or if you're a school district transition coordinator or a teacher, be happy to have a conversation with you.
Okay. I don't see any other hands up.
Nope, I do not. So I want to thank everybody for joining our Transition Tuesday. And our next Transition Tuesday will be in March, so look out for that flyer. We will actually be discussing centered person planning during the March of Transition Tuesday.
Well, thank you everybody for taking time out of your busy days to join us. And Laura, again, and CPAC, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, we are so happy to have you.
Pleasure. Thank you.